And just remember that when you are protecting your energy and you are strengthening your boundaries, ultimately what you are doing is protecting the relationship. Have you ever agreed to something you didn't want to do, kept quiet when something bothered you, or over-explained your reasons just to avoid disappointing someone? These are all signs of weak boundaries. And while they may keep the peace in the moment, over time, they quietly create resentment in your relationships. In this episode, I'll explore why weak boundaries lead to confusion and frustration, disconnection, and how strengthening them can open the door to more genuine connection.
Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you.
It is episode 27 of the Highly Sensitive Woman, and this week I really wanted to dive into this idea of resentment in our relationships. In conversations that I have been having with clients and friends recently, I have noticed that this recurring subject is coming up, and people feel like others are not necessarily reciprocating the same courtesy that they are extending. And I just feel like it's important for us to take some time to dive into it. A few years ago, I had a friend who was always late. She would frequently change plans. When we were together, she was on her phone. And I never said anything to her directly. I dropped hints, mentioning how I felt about people being late, how I didn't really deal well with last minute plan changes, how much it bothered me if I was out with people and they were on their phone, because it's just so important for me to be present and for the people I'm with to be present. I'm a bit of a planner, and I would make decisions and organize my day based on the original plans that we had made. And then later, when she'd text me last minute to say that she was running late, I would resent her because I opted to maybe shorten or skip a workout so that I could be ready on time, because being on time is so incredibly important to me. Or maybe I didn't run an errand that I didn't feel like I had enough time to complete to be ready on time. But if I had known sooner that she was going to be late or needed to change plans, then maybe I could have adjusted. And this just resentment just kept building and building and building. And I tried some things. I mentioned I tried to drop some hints. I even started telling her an earlier time so that when she was late, she would actually be on time. Like one time I made dinner reservations for us, and I made the reservations and I told her like 15 or 30 minutes earlier than what I'd actually made the reservations for. And she was actually late for the time that the reservations were for. So not only was she, 15 to 20 minutes later, whatever it was, based on the time that I told her, she was even later than that. And when we find this pattern of resentment coming up, it really isn't about the other person. Like, it really wasn't about her being late or her changing the plans. It really came from every time that I acquiesced and adjusted for her and never said anything, I was abandoning my own needs and my own desires for how things would look. And that's where the resentment really came from. Because without having our boundaries and being firm with those boundaries, we agree to things out of obligation. And back then, this was a handful of years ago, I I still had not come to a level of self-acceptance that allowed me to have the confidence and courage to feel like what I wanted was as valuable as how she wanted things to be, that my time was not as important as hers. And so I would agree out of obligation to try to maintain this friendship. And it was not coming from a place of authenticity and a place of self-acceptance and feeling that I was just as worthy of expressing my needs for people to be on time as it was for her to adjust plans. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen sometimes. Sure, I have been there. I have been the one running late on occasion. Things happen. It wasn't that. It was the ongoing, like it got to be almost comical that I would just sort of wait for the, hey, I'm going to be late kind of text. And that would just build the resentment. And over time, when we have that resentment building, we start to feel unappreciated or taken advantage of or unseen. And I certainly felt that in this relationship because I knew that she showed up on time for other people. And I knew that she would put her phone down for other people. And I felt like it was me, that it was specific to me, and that she felt like I was not worthy of her being on time or her being very present when we were together. And my silence is ultimately, and I'm going to own this, my silence is ultimately what led to kind of the demise of our friendship because she never really knew how I felt. And that is on me. So our weak boundaries, they don't always look obvious. You know, sometimes there are some subtle habits that feel quote unquote normal, but they chip away at your energy and your connection over time. In this particular instance, when it first started happening, I was trying to grow and to not be so rigid and to not have such high expectations for other people. And so I thought, I will just work on being more accommodating and being more flexible. And yeah, I was sort of denying myself, and that just chipped away at my energy and the connection that I was able to have with her over time. And when we agree to things out of, maybe it's guilt, you know, you feel guilty saying no to someone because you know that they could really use your help, or maybe you have fear. In this case, I had some fear that if I wasn't more accommodating that I was going to lose the friendship. Or maybe it is pressure. You know, you have a relationship dynamic that you feel this pressure to always say yes to this person. That is a very common sign that you have some weak boundaries. Another one is over-explaining or justifying your needs. Like you feel like you have to give a very lengthy or involved explanation for why you're saying no, or that you can't say no unless you already have something on your calendar. I heard a story once of someone doing this, that if they got asked to do something and that they really didn't want to do, they would maybe delay responding to that person, try to make other plans on that particular day with someone else so that they could go back to that first person and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that because I already have plans. And for whatever reason, we have sort of been taught and trained that you can't say no unless you have something else planned or a quote unquote valid reason for saying no. But the reality is you can just say no. And it took me a really long time to understand that concept, and that sometimes it's just my calendar was pretty full, and that particular Tuesday was the only day that I didn't have anything planned and I needed some downtime, and it was okay to say no. Or it is okay when someone says, hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes late. Does that still work for you? It is okay to say no. Or maybe you say, yes, that still works for me, but I still need to be done at the original time. So we're just going to lose those 15 minutes. If you find yourself avoiding the conflict because you're just staying silent, you're holding back your true thoughts, or you're keeping your feelings inside so that you can help kind of keep the peace, that is a sign that you have some weak boundaries. If you're not asking for what you need and hoping that someone else will just know without you having to say it, you're hoping that they will read your mind. And, that would be a really nice thing at times, wouldn't it? And then there are other times where maybe someone reading our minds wouldn't be so great. But I understand the concept of wanting someone to just know, or for their definition to be the exact same as yours. But most of the time that is not the case. And so asking for what you need is critical to having boundaries that allow you to prevent that resentment. If you find yourself ignoring your limits and pushing yourself beyond, you're tired or being exhausted just because you don't want to let someone down. I have done that before. I have pushed and had too many things on my calendar, and so that's why now on a given day, if that's my only down day, I'm pretty firm with that boundary, and I plan those days in so that I can have some rest, because I know what happens when I ignore my limits and I push myself too much. And then I am an unpleasant person to be around, and I feel that resentment, and I find myself sometimes kind of keeping score and noticing what I have done and how many times I have adjusted. And sometimes it's adjusting for the same person, and sometimes it's adjusting for someone else entirely, and they have no idea that I have made an adjustment for them, but I feel like they should know and that I should get credit for it. But when they don't know, those boundaries that we set, they're not walls. They provide clarity for you and for the other person. And when you are honest about what works for you, your needs, your capacity, the relationship with the people in your life become way more authentic, and it reduces that resentment, and it creates space for the genuine yeses and for the genuine moments that you can share with the people that you care about the most. So some practical steps to help start strengthening your boundaries. 1, start noticing where you're having resentment, because it is a signal to you that a boundary was crossed. And it's one of those things that if you don't even notice when it's happening, it's impossible for you to address it with the other person. So just start noticing where you find that resentment popping up so that you can start to be aware of what's not working for you, and then you can start to have the conversations about what actually does work for you. Another step to strengthen your boundaries is practicing no in low stakes situations. And you get to decide what feels like low stakes to you. What feels like low stakes to me might be completely different to what feels like a low stakes situation for you. I think I've mentioned this before. For me, it feels way more low stakes to set a boundary with someone new in my life than someone with whom I already have kind of an established pattern of being. And so that's what works for me. But for other people, it feels the complete opposite, right? They feel like I have an established relationship with someone, and I know that they love me, and I know that they care for me. And so that feels kind of low stakes because it's already an established rapport, and that person might be a little more forgiving than a stranger or someone new that you're trying to create a relationship with. Another step to strengthen your boundaries is replace the over-explaining with some very simple, clear statements like, I can't make it this time, or that doesn't work for me, but this will, or one that I mentioned earlier. Sure, it's fine if you're going to be, 15, 30 minutes late, but I still have to end at the time that we had decided we were ending. And just remember that when you are protecting your energy and you are strengthening your boundaries, ultimately what you are doing is protecting the relationship. When you start strengthening your boundaries, you are not pushing people away. You're actually inviting them into a relationship that is rooted in honesty and mutual respect. And the more that you honor your limits, the more authentic and connected your relationships will feel. Weak boundaries might feel like the kind or easy choice in the moment, but over time, they do create distance in your relationship instead of the closeness, because the truth always comes out eventually. Maybe not in the nicest way, or maybe things get a little bit too far gone before the truth comes out. And so while it seems like in the moment, choosing your words very carefully and trying to be kind and easy and just kind of keep the peace, it feels like the better choice. In the end, it ends up backfiring most of the time. So resentment that you feel, remember that it isn't proof that you are too sensitive or difficult or needy. It is simply your inner wisdom signaling that a boundary has been crossed, and it is just an invitation to you to strengthen your boundaries. If this episode resonated with you, chances are someone you care about might need to hear it too. Would you share it with a friend who struggles potentially with boundaries? It could be the reminder they need to start creating more space for themselves and for their relationships. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.